Hi, so you're Dan Pontefract.
All right, how are you?
Good to meet you.
Likewise.
And you've just done a great session emanating from your book, Flat Army. How would you summarise it?
Well, quite frankly, first of all, thanks, but I have a disdain, if not a loathing, for what's happening to our organizations. I think still today that hierarchy is the state of hierarchy for senior suite's sake, and that there's this level of discomfort, disenfranchisement, if not disengagement with the workers. And ultimately, it's not about just profit, it's about finding a purpose inside the organization. And that manifests if leaders and employees alike are engaged, if they feel good about what they're doing, if they feel as though they have a contribution to make as opposed to being treated like a minion or a number in a spreadsheet. So to me, disengagement is a huge issue in our organizations, and I think we need to do something about it.
And what are the two main reasons that you see?
Well, I mean, it's no surprise. If I call a book like Flat Army, you're sort of saying, well, there still needs to be some sort of command and control, but can we do it in a more hospitable way?
Yeah.
I mean, this is not Roman times anymore. We need not sort of just bark orders and say, go do this, you employee. What about collaborating together? What about asking for ideas before you go and execute on a mission? I think to me today, employees just want to give. They're not in it for 6 and 7 figures. They want to feel like they can make a contribution. Yet the flip side is the C-suite senior leaders, in fact, they're used to being hierarchical, if not hierarchy for the sake of hierarchy. So this mentality of girth, this mentality of being the leader, but doing it in a very domineering, if not dominating way, is creating this friction in the organization. And just again, quite frankly, I think it's got to stop.
So how do you think we can change the balance?
Well, first of all, it's not a light switch. I don't think we can just turn it on and,
no.
I'm sorry. I like to think of it as an ultra marathon. This is sort of a 100-mile endeavor for all of us. And it is really going to start at the top, but I think there's some groundswell that can occur bottoms up as well. So from the top, I think if leaders are to instill a sense of an open, collaborative leadership platform, so a philosophy, that is actually systemic across all employees. So this lexicon, this dialogue, this attributes, these behaviors that are open, collaborative, communicative, those really coming from the top about inclusivity, about collaboration, is going to go a long way for employees feeling trust again, feeling as though they can make a contribution. So I think it's got to start at the C-suite first and foremost. But then I think you've got plays by HR, by learning, by marketing, by IT, by finance. I think people need to come together. So examples, can we allow people to work from home? God forbid they are able to work from home, right? You need to see them all day.
But they're just going to watch the TV.
Of course, I mean, the telly is on all day. Thank God for BBC4, right? I mean, but no, ultimately I think it's about, do you trust your people, both wherever they may work, but also to surface those ideas. I mean, it's not just the head of some department or some business unit that has the best idea. I think we need a long way to go to instill a sense of collaborative behavior into the organization. It takes a while.
Do you think the way we define leadership has to change?
Yes.
We recognize leadership.
Yeah, I mean, I have this great slide where on the left-hand side, there's this caricature of a leader standing on top of an arrow, and behind it are 8 people that are holding on to the arrow. So the leader's standing at the top, and he's pointing in the direction. He's standing on the arrow, yet these 8 employees are lifting, looking at each other, saying, oh my God, why are we doing this? This is not fun. Whereas on the right-hand side of the diagram is what's called a skein. And a skein is the V formation that birds fly in. And what's neat about a skein is that they rotate leadership as they move from point A to point B. So how about that just as a metaphor? How about we are less like the authoritative, hierarchical leader who's pointing fingers saying, thou shalt do this yesterday, or you're fired, and then be more like the Canada geese or any flock of birds. I'm not an ornithologist, but ultimately I think that's what they do. They work together to achieve their goal, which is to arrive at the destination using the great talent of everyone in that, every bird in that scheme.
Do you think there's an element that some leaders kind of don't want to collaborate because they want to uphold their position of leadership and therefore maybe a bit concerned that the people that they see themselves as managing might have some good ideas?
Precisely. I mean, there is a lot of fear in leadership these days. I mean, we've all heard of servant leadership. We've heard of Charlene Lee's open leadership. To give up the authority, in a sense, is not actually what I'm referring to. Flat army is paying homage to the Latin term from army, which was armada, which means a flotilla. It's like ships, right, going together. So let's get flattened ships together, sailing together. You still need a captain.
Yeah.
I mean, you still need a coach, if you will. You still need a leader to perhaps make that final decision. This is not about holacracy. This is not about consensual decision-making across everybody. It's about feeling as though the employee has a say, but it doesn't have to be the say.
Yeah.
Right?
And do you think social media has a part to play in this?
First of all, I think leaders get a bit scared of social media, particularly when it's inside the organization. Oh my gosh, what are they going to say about me? So there's that fear factor to overcome for sure, my friend. But how about this? What if you, first of all, started with the behaviors, so the collaborative behaviors, the open behaviors, the communicative behaviors, and so on, and then you sort of mesh that with some social inside your organization? Don't the two go hand in hand? But let's flip it around. If you just dropped a bunch of social tools on your organization and said, have at her. If you have a scared, fearful, kind of performance development driven systemic model in your organization where people are waiting and hoping that that performance appraisal comes and they don't get fired that year, how are they going to be open and collaborative in a system that has just been deployed, i.e. the social system? They're not. They're going to continue to be afraid, and they're going to continue to say, oh, I'm not going to be truthful in my ideation or my answers, my feedback here for fear of reprisal. So I always say it's form before tool and behavior before technology. So yes, social can play a part, but it is not the first step. You don't drop the if you build it, they will come mentality onto your organization and say, oh, they're not using social. I guess, there's no good for us. No, and that's where HR, I think, comes into play, and the C-suite. It's those behaviors. You really got to instill that into your philosophy in the organization, aided and abetted by the technology.
So was there a defining moment for you, a business you observed or worked in, which kind of started the chain of thought going that led to the book?
Well, I mean, I got brought into TELUS, which is kind of like British Telecom and Vodafone of Canada. So it's 45,000 employees, it's about $12 billion in revenue. And in 2007, our employee engagement sat at 53%. So better than the averages across the globe, but still half the people didn't really want to be there. Today, it sits at 85%. But that's 7 years, and every year it incrementally went up, which is my point about it not being a light switch, right? You really have to work at this. So for us at TELUS, it was about putting customers first, but how do you instill a customers first philosophy? You do that by these open collaborative behaviors. You do it by recognition programs. You do it by work styles, letting people to work, allowing them to work, from anywhere. By what we call the TLP, the TELUS leadership philosophy, which is that collaborative, attribute-based model. Using a system we call pervasive learning, where learning is equal parts formal, informal, and social. So teaming up with IT to sort of build out these social tools, but knowing that you have a leadership philosophy that backs it up. It is multifaceted approach. If a company wants to change its culture, and this could be the NHS, this could be public sector, this could be for-profit, you have to think through all these different mechanisms together and then keep at it. I see so many organizations give up, and that frightens me.
And a lot of engagement comes from actually valuing the people that you work with. And do you think there are things leaders can do now, if you like, that to begin to improve that?
Well, last I checked, the word humanity has the word human in it. So perhaps leaders might want to take a page from Oxford or Webster's dictionary and look at that word humanity. I think we need to instill a sense of humanity back into the organization, recognizing that the word human is in it, and start to treat our people like humans again, as opposed to head count, the blasted word that I just can't stand. We are not head count. We are people. We are humans.
Well, listen, Dan, it was a very, very good session, and I think you've got some books to go inside.
Thanks so much, mate.
Okay.
Cheers. All
You
right.
too.